Alright, so I got the seat out in the back here. Working my way to the rear engine access. If you guys do a build out in the bus, do like they did on here. Make sure you leave good access to get in here. I mean, it's not 100% necessary. There's always a way around it if you can't get to them, but it just makes your life a lot easier when you have access. Really should have gloves on right now. I'll make a mess of the interior here. Grab a pair real quick. I brought a box with me. Let's see if the next one works. Cheap Harbor Freight gloves. Man, it seems like half the time when you go to put them on your hands, when you pull them, they just rip. But the inside of this bus is beautiful, so I want to make sure you're doing everything I can to keep it clean while I work, because I don't want to have to go back and clean it afterwards. Here we go. So I'm about 90% sure that valve cover will fit through here. Maybe we'll get a 3/8 ratcheting wrench real quick. We'll get that thing popped up, and it's time to start doing stuff to get the compression test going back here. Wow, that is on there. I knew it would come out of there. Just over here, hope it doesn't knock the camera over. Okay, well, there we go. So that is what we're working with. Not a ton of room, but more than enough to get what we got to get done on this. So we'll just pick one and start with it and work our way down the row, and we're going to test all four on this side and see what they're at. So Detroit publishes their compression test numbers for these based off of like 600 RPM, which is idle. They want them to be done running, which you can run in compression test them. It's not impossible. The tester I was using yesterday, obviously you can't because you don't have a rack. The one I'm using today, though, will fit with a rack in place, so you could do a running compression test. But running compression tests aren't always an option. Sometimes the engine doesn't run it, and that's why you're doing the compression test. So from what I've seen, and this is just my experience, compression test when you're cranking it over to start it on a brand new fresh engine, you see about 400 psi. I think at running it's supposed to be like 560 or 600, something like that. Over 300, you're pretty good. Below 300, when you really start seeing drivability issues and problems with them running. So if you guys remember from yesterday or day before, whenever that video posted, we had 300, 310, 290, 270, something like that, 280, 270. Two below 300 on the end. So that's a problem. And there's no cross hatching whatsoever left in those bottom four cylinders. Now, from what I could see by fishing a bore scope from the other side of the engine all the way through, this side still has cross-hatching. And usually what we see, this bank doesn't wear out near as fast on a GM. So we're going to compression test this side, and I want to see what the numbers are. I want to see consistent numbers, and I want to see hopefully some higher numbers than we saw on the other side. If these things are way out of tolerance, then we're not going to have a choice. We're going to have to redo all 8. But if these are good, there is a chance that we could save Lance some money and only do the 4 that are causing the issue. Even if these are low, you could do those 4, and that's always going to be down to what the customer wants to do. But I like to see them so that if I have 4 fresh cylinders down there putting out, 350 to 400, then I don't have, some low ones up here. But we'll see what they're at and see how we feel about it once we get it tested. So we're going to start with this one. No reason why. This is the one we're going to start with. So we'll get the fuel lines off. Trick on these, if you're going to do them and you don't want to spray fuel everywhere, one of the fuel jumpers will fit across the cylinder, as you guys saw in the last video, so that you can keep it from spraying fuel everywhere. Also, generally stops it from losing all of its prime. So when you break these loose, no real science or fun to them. They're 1/2 inch. If you got to do it with a wrench, it's doable, but you're going to have a hell of a day. So, this is a deep well crow's foot socket. Snap-on makes them. I'm assuming other people do too. But they work great. You can bust it loose. And you can get them by hand. And if you can't get them with your fingers yet, like this, it's out of there. Then a lot of times you can still use the ratchet, obviously, or I found you can put them on there and just use those, the socket, to turn them. And sometimes you have to do that when you get into a tight spot where you just don't have clearance. So take that off, this off. This, put it in the back. And it is the short jumper that you do it with, not the long one, if you have the offset injectors. I don't know if this trick works on HV injectors, because HV injectors don't have a long and a short. I don't know if their size happens to be right to do this or not. But there you go. Just jumps across cylinder. Alright, we're going to go up front, run the compression test on the cylinder. Well, let's see what we found. About 340 pounds. Alright, so we're going to move it over now. See what we get on cylinder 2. Okay, so we'll get this swapped out, move it over to the next cylinder. Short extension would make that easier, but it's actually making it harder. The one downfall to these accesses is there just never is enough room. I mean, I'm not going to complain too much because I could be having to do this over the engine and around the blower and all that, but if it was an inch or two taller, it'd be really nice. So as I go when I do these, I put them back together and get everything retorqued as we go. So we'll get the injector down in here. Make sure it's hooked up to the rack. It's on the rack. Go ahead and get the injector hole down in. I'll get the torque wrench. We'll torque the injector back in. And then I usually, depending on the engine, retorque the rockers now, but I don't have my torque wrench up here with me, so we'll just get them snugged back up pretty good. And then we'll come back through and torque them when we're done. And like I said on the other side, you're going to have to go back through and make all your adjustments again. Now this side, shouldn't have to make a rack adjustment, but if I'm going to be adjusting the rack on the other side and I got it apart, I'll go ahead and just do it. That is assuming we make the phone call and this thing doesn't just get torn apart right now. If it gets torn apart right now, then I'll wait till it's done. Because all it should have to do between now and if or when we work on it, if it doesn't leave here, is move it over off the pad. We're going to have to need the pad open for our next project, but we'll see when that happens. Told Lance I'd give him a phone call a little later today once I got the compression numbers on this top side, and we'll kind of lay out the options from there. All right. Get my torque wrench set up. We'll torque that real quick. I'm going to disassemble the other side. We'll move it over and keep on going down the line. All right, we're set up on the second cylinder now. Go run compression on it. See what it did. What the hell? Alright, I don't like what I saw there, so I'm going to go rerun that test because that gauge moved. So, clear it out. I'll go run it again because it was moving. Alright, let's see if cylinder 3 will match 1 and 2. Well, I ran that test twice just to make sure we got the same number. And we peaked about 310 both times. Now we saw 340 on those two. We're down to 310 on this one. It's about 9%. You never really want to see more than 10%. To me, 9% is still kind of high. But I think the other issue out here is if we have some fresh cylinders that are 350 to 400 on the other bank, that 310 I think is a little bit low. I think I'm going to do a little conferring here and see if Dad is in agreement with me on this one, but I think that I'm going to recommend, because that one's at 310. Unfortunately, I think we're going to tear into this bank too. See what he thinks. Also, it's going to completely be up to Lance. If we have one outlier that's a little bit lower, it's going to be contributing a little less, with a little less power on that cylinder. It's all going to be up to him if he wants to do this bank or not. I don't think this bank's got our oil consumption problem. Willing to bet money it's only the other bank. But we'll probably make a couple phone calls here and see what we're going to do from there. Well, we're going to go ahead and compression test the last cylinder. I've done 7. My OCD is not going to let me stop there. But we'll see what it gets. Hopefully it's good. I guess at this point it really doesn't matter. It could be 0 and pretty much be the same outcome. But we'll go ahead and compression test it, see what we find. It's just going to take me a minute here to get everything swapped over. All right, we're going to go run 4. See what it does. Oh, wow. That one is about 380. Well, this bank's got some variance. Hang on, I gotta do math. All right, my math could be wrong because, you know, I do this for a living, not something that requires a college degree anyway. But that's 19%, I believe. 19, that is insane. Sorry, that's 19% on this bank. That's not even the entire engine. Hang on, more math. Whew, okay. Well, that math made it look even worse. So, our highest to our lowest, we have 29%. I'm amazed. This thing actually ran smooth. It didn't run terribly. Had a bit of an oil leak. I wouldn't say that it was severely down on power. It climbed the hill, and it's an automatic bus, let's be honest. Automatics always feel a little bit gutless when you drive them. But, Jesus, 29% variation. That's insane. I can't believe this thing ran as well as it did. Well, I think now it's time to make the phone call I don't like making, but, hey, Lance. I'm gonna get this thing all buttoned back up together so we can start up and move it, but it's not great. All right, Sunday morning here, and Lance just came back with his decision. We are gonna go ahead, rebuild it. We're gonna tear it down, but it looks like it's gonna get a full in frame here. So cut my zip ties off. That's what I was using to hold the fuel off to do my compression test on it. I got a few things to pick up here, some parts that I'm going to set aside, like the clamp for the top of the muffler I had to move and stuff, but we're going to get it fired up, move it over next to the pad where my truck is sitting, and then I'm waiting to hear back from Lance if he wants to be here on teardown day for it or not. But keep your eyes out for a video series coming up, because we're going to be doing an in-frame on an 8V71 in this 4106. Ha! He thought that was going to be hard starting. For having low compression, this thing, man, she fires right up. It's up and running, but a bit hazy out here. Alright, we're going to get this thing moved. So it's in a better spot for us to work on it. I always forget the direction of that switch. This thing's got a momentary switch to shift gears for the automatic. It's gonna be the last drive for this engine. Probably, most likely. Ignore that. I've got a lot of coolant stacked up in the staircase of this thing. Bottles keep falling. Okay. Still, shifted the wrong direction again. There we go. I'll have to show you guys this real quick. So this is really cool. This is the shifter for this bus. So if we go up, we're in reverse. Green's neutral. D drive. 2, 1. Back to neutral. So you're driving down the road, that is just sitting right next to you when you're driving this thing. So you can actually shift it really easy if you need to kick down a gear or something like that. But we're going to go ahead and shut her down. And I think this is where it's going to sit till we tear it down. I just talked to Lance. I think he's going to come over later this week, and we're going to take a day and tear the engine down, figure out what parts kits we need to order, and go ahead and get this whole thing rebuilt.